I hate doing intros. I really hate doing intros. I am not an intro person. Hi. I hate this. I hate this. I'm going to tell you about the books that I read in June because I actually managed to read 3 books. So, round of applause for me. That's actually pretty good. I'm doing pretty well, I must say, for a massive procrastinator and somebody who says I'm going to read and continues to buy many books. Actually, reading some is quite good. That's good for me. Remember that time I did a wrap up and I read like 15 books? And I remember some of them were like kids' books. There was a lot. There was a lot going on there. So the first book that I read this month was actually an audiobook that I had been listening to for a good while. I think I mentioned it several times in other videos. It was What a Way to Go by Mackie. In my last wrap-up video, so I didn't do one for May because I don't think I read anything in May. But in my last wrap-up in April, I talked about this book. Or in my last wrap-up in April, I talked briefly about this book because I just started it. And also I'd read another book by Mackie called How to Kill Your Family, which I enjoyed until the ending and it went off the rails. Well, it didn't go off the rails, but it had a really crap ending. But I decided to torture myself further by listening to another book by Mackie, which was this one, which was What a Way to Go. And what a way to go it truly was. I could have done an in-depth review about this book, but I don't think I'm going to bother now. Like, it would just be a big long rant video. Watch this video end up being 30 minutes long because I dedicate half of it to ranting about this book. But basically, the plot was about a rich man, a very unlikable rich man called Anthony. What was his surname? I can't remember what his surname was. What were they called? Who were they? I don't know. But it sort of followed a similar theme to the other book I read by Mackie, How to Kill Your Family, where there's this really rich businessman and his family, and the whole family's unlikable, sort of at the center of it, and the whole family are just awful. There wasn't a redeeming character amongst them all. Anthony dies at his birthday party. He is impaled on a spike or something in the lake at the back of their house during the party. The police rule it as an accident, but there's another character who we also get point of views from in this book. So we get point of views from Anthony, his wife Olivia, and the character of the sleuth. I talked about this very briefly in my other wrap-up, and I can't remember if I talked about it. I think I talked about it at other points. But basically, the character of the sleuth is somebody who is obsessed with true crime, and she has her own social media account. I think it's a YouTube page. I can't remember if they even explicitly say what it is, but she's got social media. She has like a very low following. Like, she has like no followers. And she's obsessed with true crime and all the true crime channels. And she's like, I just want to get to the truth. I want to solve mysteries. She basically wants to be Scooby-Doo, Mr. Incorporated, but by herself. And lucky for her, this death happens right on her doorstep in Yorkshire. She is from Yorkshire. I'm pretty sure in the audiobook, the girl who was narrating the character of the sleuth. So we had 3 narrators. We had Olivia, we had Anthony, and we had the sleuth. So thankfully there was 3 different actors for the different voices, because nothing grinds my gears more than one voice speaking for all the different characters, unless it's done in a really convincing way by a real voice actor who is going to be able to do impressions of all the different characters. If it's one person doing really bad impressions, I'm like, ooh. The sleuth character's narrator was doing a really bad Yorkshire accent, and I'm very sorry if she is actually, I don't think it's her real accent. I really don't think it is, but it was not good. It was very, it wasn't, I don't even know how to describe it, but it was not good. It was not good at all. And every time a chapter would start and it would be like, the sleuth, and I would just hear her voice and it would, oh. But even just the character as well, like, pissed me the fuck off because of the way she was carrying on. She was like, I think this was murder. I can't do a Yorkshire accent either, so apologies. It's really bad. But just the way she'd be like, it was murder. Nobody else will realise it. That's a really bad accent. That's so bad. And it was pissing me off because she was just like, there's no evidence to suggest that he'd been killed, but she was like, it's murder. This is my claim to fame. This has happened right on my doorstep. I'm going to solve this crime. I'm going to get famous from it. And she starts making YouTube videos, and she ends up generating a really large following. I think close to like 100,000 subscribers. And she's all excited at the idea of getting famous or like getting notoriety from this. It irks me a little bit. I think I'm just not really big on influencers in modern day novels and books and literature and just anything. Anytime an influencer appears, I have nothing wrong with them. I have no issue with them in real life. I mean, that's a lie, but I won't get into that. But I don't really have much of an issue with them in terms of like real life, but when it's into like modern day media and it's like, this is character, like they're an influencer, and I'm just like, ugh. Not in my book. Not in my book. And she basically just wanted to get famous from this, but meanwhile her videos sounded like the worst thing in the world, and I honestly cannot see why. I honestly can't see it being very popular with the internet. It sounded like none of her videos she showed her face, but it wasn't like she was sitting with like her face blacked out or blurry or a mask on. It was literally like her videos were her recording her knee, like, or looking at the ground and getting all these videos and then recording people and putting them on blast online. And she was told multiple times by the police, like, you need to stop. She literally got arrested. It was so bonkers, batshit crazy. I only liked Olivia's chapters, to be perfectly honest. Olivia's chapters were pretty good because she was just carrying on with her life, like, oh my goodness. And then it turned out that Anthony was obviously a really horrible businessman, and he'd been swindling money, he'd been conning people. And so the entire family were on blast, like, you knew he was doing this. Anthony's chapters were told from the afterlife, which usually I do love these kind of little supernatural tropes where, oh, maybe somebody that's dead in the real world is actually telling you some stories or having POVs told from the afterlife. He was in what I can only describe as, like, I don't know the equivalent of what we have in the UK, but I am picturing every time the DMV in America is shown in television and filmed, where you're in a waiting room, like you're given a number and you're told to wait, and it's very clinical and the staff are very unhelpful. Like those really like parodied versions of them. I don't know what they're like in real life because I've never been to the DMV because I've never been to America. But things like that where it's just very flat. And he's in this horrible office-like building that's very bland, and he is told by the officials or the whatever, I assume they're some sort of angels, I don't know, they're just staff that are ghosts, and they tell him that in order for him to pass on to the next life, like what comes after this little waiting room, this in-between, he needs to figure out how he died before he can move on. So he's like, oh my god, I was murdered, because he doesn't remember, a ghost doesn't remember what happened to them, like the run up to their death. So he ends up in this place for so long, and he is actually, I actually quite liked his chapters because he was quite funny, because he was like, the way they're treating us is terrible. I want to see someone from management. I want to see your boss. And they were always like, our boss is busy. And I assume that the boss is supposed to be God or a god or the devil himself. I don't really know, but we never actually see them. His chapters, to begin with, I was a bit like, oh, but he was able to watch his family members through a computer screen, which I didn't like that either. I love it if someone's a ghost. It's like the movie Ghost with Patrick Swayze, where they die, they have unfinished business. In this case, he has to figure out how he died. And they can move around in the world, they can be around their family, their loved ones. I would have preferred that if he was actually following them around, not watching them through a computer screen, like clicking through videos. Like, it was, no, I didn't like that at all. So Anthony's in the afterlife, trying to figure out how he died. Olivia's trying to pick up the pieces. Her children are terrible. She has 4 children. I forget all their names. There was Lyra, and Jemima and Freddie, and I know there was a fourth or like a third daughter, but there was a fourth child and it was a girl. Lyra, Jemima, and Freddie. And there was a fourth. And I can't remember which one the fourth was. But they were all horrible. They were just horrible. They were just spoiled little rich girls. They were horrible. So the sleuth character is busy trying to figure out what happened to Anthony while also posting videos online. Olivia's just carrying on with her life. Her children are terrible. And Anthony's in the afterlife. I gave this book 3 stars because it took me a while to get into it. I was very iffy. I wasn't a big fan, as I say, of the voice acting from it. I did not like the character of the sleuth at all. It just felt like maybe it's because I let my own personal opinions cloud a fictional story, but in real life, I'm not a big fan of true crime creators. I feel like there is ways of bringing new light or visibility to unsolved cases or cases of injustice and done in a tasteful, respectful way. And then you get the people that are sitting there like, watch me do my makeup while I tell you about this horrible murder where people were unalived and pew-pewed and schmexily, what did they say? It's not schmexily assaulted. I don't mind the term essayed because I feel like you're dropping it down to an initial. That doesn't sound too bad because, you don't really need to say the words out loud because it can cause trauma or PTSD for people that have gone through it themselves. So I don't mind the term essayed. It's when they kind of make it sound gimmicky or, as someone pointed out once, like cartoony, where it's like she was schmexly assaulted or suicide and all that. And I'm just like, and pew-pewed. She was pew-pewed by her ex-boyfriend. No! Anywho, but I'm not a big true crime fan to begin with. I don't mind, as I say, if it's done tastefully, if it's bringing awareness to cases, or it's talking about something that's just happened and maybe it's developing. I'm just not a big fan of the way some people, some creators will speak about cases, especially when they're doing other stuff. Like if they're doing other hobbies. I'm just like, watch me paint while I tell you about this absolutely heinous crime. Like, it's so distasteful for the family. So I'm not a big fan of true crime creators in the first place. So I wasn't a big fan of the sleuth character because of this, and the way she was carrying on and talking about it really irked me. And I can't tell if it was meant to be a parody or not, because by the end of the book, she decides that I'm done with true crime. That whole family was batshit crazy. I'm done. I'm gonna move on to conspiracy theories. And I was like, okay, I will take a conspiracy theorist over a true crimer. It's when she was, at one point, she was like, I'm getting quite a bit of a following now. I need to think of a fun name for my subscribers, for my fans. And I think she kept using the term fans. And I never really liked that. Like, do you know if you are doing something that's supposed to be sort of educational? So I feel like true crime, it's not really educational, but it is a little bit. You're not like an influencer in terms of like, you're an actor, you're a singer, you're a model, you have an online presence and people maybe look up to you, maybe look up to your lifestyle. That I feel like you can be a fan of, but if someone's trying to educate you on something or talk about a topic, I wouldn't really say like you're a fan of that person, and especially when she literally did not even show her face, no one knew anything about her, she was just a blank canvas. Would you really say, oh, I'm a fan? Anywho, I'm really getting on such a tangent. I knew this would happen. But anywho, at one point she was talking about coming up with a name for her fans, and it was just the names that she was listing were something atrocious, and say it was something crazy like the Gravediggers, or it was not good. It was not good at all, and it ruined the book for me. The ending was actually quite good. I won't spoil it because I must admit, taking out all the chapters from the sleuth's perspective, Anthony's was okay. Olivia's was really good. Well, not really good, but it was better. And I actually enjoyed it, and I didn't take it too seriously. So by the end, I wasn't taking the book that seriously. And the reveal came at the end, and it was actually kind of funny, and I enjoyed it. But I still just gave it 3 stars just because I think if I was actually reading this book, like reading it, I would have struggled. But it might have been a little bit better, because then I wouldn't have heard the terrible accents the voice actors were doing. But apart from that, 3 stars. It was okay. I would recommend it as something, a bit of a light-hearted mystery, but there were many times that it pissed me the off. That took 17 minutes to get all that off my chest, but I already feel lighter. It's been so long since it's been a month since I actually read that book, because I finished it on the 1st of June, and it's all coming back to me now just how much it. Next up, the second book I read was Dark Places by Gillian Flynn. I have read 2 books by Gillian Flynn before. I've read Gone Girl and Sharp Objects. I love them both. I think I preferred Sharp Objects only because I knew the story of Gone Girl going into Gone Girl. I hadn't seen the movie, but I knew the premise of it and what happened. It still surprised me along the way, and I still thought it was quite good, but I remember Sharp Objects just being a bit better, and I just liked it a bit more. So I was excited going into this one. It sounded really interesting. The story is about Libby Day, who was 7 years old when her entire family was murdered. So, well, not her entire family, that's a lie. Her mum and her 2 sisters were killed, and her brother Ben is accused of the murder. He gets charged, he goes to prison, and he's been in prison for however many years. Modern day Libby is 25 years old. She is struggling for money because, I didn't know this, and I assume this is sort of true. I read it in a book, so it must be true. But because of the case and the newsworthiness of it, there is people who donate money to this little girl, and she has I don't know if it's a lawyer. I think it was a lawyer character. I think he was a lawyer. Some sort of guardian type of figure that looked after the money and gave it out to her. So she would get like millions, or like hundreds and thousands, maybe even millions, donated to her, because people were like, oh, this poor little girl, she's on her own in the world. So she basically lives off this money until she's 25 years old, and now the money is like, she basically gets the last of it, and we're like, sorry Libby, but like, you're not a cute little girl anymore. Like, you're a grown woman. People expect you to go out and find your own way and get a job. So I'm actually curious if that is actually true. I suppose maybe it is. I've never really thought about that kind of thing, and maybe it does happen in this country as well, in the UK. I'd be curious to know and look into it. But basically, she is now needing money, and she gets invited to come along to the Kill Club, which is a secret society obsessed with notorious crimes. So once again, going into what I was just talking about, we have a club that are obsessed with it, and it's your typical women writing to men in prison and being in love with serial killers. There is this one group that is obsessed with the Day family murders. They're obsessed with Libby. They think that Ben is innocent. They think that basically the police department he was a credible suspect. They were like, he did it, it was him. And through sort of a coercion, through therapists or counselors, they coerced Libby to say, it was my brother, I saw him do it. Libby doesn't really like to think back about that night. She's a bit like, well, maybe I heard him, I didn't actually see him. So there's a character in the Kill Club who's the one that gets in touch with Libby, called Lyle, and he brings her in, and they sort of talk through stuff with her. And in the end, she finally goes and visits Ben in prison. And then she decides to do a bit of investigating herself. But her main reason for doing this is because the Kill Club is giving her money to investigate it. So she goes and meets up with her dad, who's a deadbeat, wasn't really in their lives all that much. She goes to prison to see them. She goes to see other people, and they're paying her to go and do this because they're like, well, they'll talk to you because you're Libby Day. I struggled to get into this book at the start. I was excited to begin with. Most of the chapters are told from Libby's perspective. There's also chapters that are set in the past. So there's Ben's chapters and there's Patty's chapters. And Patty is Libby's mum. So both Ben's and Patty's are the day of the murder. So it starts in the early morning. They're kind of detailing stuff that's happened in the past, but it's all happening the day of the killings. So Libby's is present day, Ben and Patty's are in the past. And I quite enjoyed, I didn't like Ben's chapters because Ben, although he was only like 15 years old, he was a dumb kid. He was a dumb kid. He had a really weird girlfriend, and she had a really weird friend, and they were very much like into the whole Satan worship. I didn't like any of Ben's chapters. They made me very uncomfortable. Like, the guy kissed a minor. The guy kissed a little girl. I can't remember how old she was. And there was just a lot about it. And then they were torturing animals. They slaughtered cows. And I felt really uncomfortable reading it. So it was not pleasant. So I didn't like Ben's chapters at all. I quite like Paddy's chapters and the run up to the killing. And then we got to see some of the killing. And Libby's chapters, I didn't mind them actually. I struggled with them a little bit just because Libby is quite a different character. I would never say that I didn't like her, because I feel like the way she's turned out is because of what's happened to her. Like, at the end of the day, this little girl had her entire family massacred and her brother is in prison, so she has nobody, and she rebelled. She was taken in by her auntie Diane, and she was just basically a little brat, and in the end Diane was like, I literally cannot have you in my house anymore, you need to go. So I didn't like, I had a lot of sympathy for her. That didn't mean that I liked her all that much, but I slogged through it. I was just dying to know what had actually happened. And then when we did find out, I was a bit like, oh, I see. So that was fine. It was different than I expected, but I suppose it did have a bit of a twist. I gave it 4 stars just because it was still good. It just, to me, it wasn't perfect. A book, in my opinion, needs to be practically perfect for me to give it 5 stars. But I didn't dislike it. I just, So I gave it 4 stars. It was quite good. It was, one thing I will say, when I originally read the summary on the back, and it says, but when Libby's search uncovers an unimaginable truth, she finds herself right back where she started, on the run from a killer. It kind of sold it to me a little bit as if someone was going to be maybe threatening her, saying, oh, you're investigating this, you want to stop. You want to stop or I'm going to kill you too. I kind of expected that to happen a bit sooner, a bit quicker, to kind of happen maybe for most of the book. To be, not most of the book, but a good chunk of the book. I thought maybe she was going to be, not necessarily on the run from the killer, but maybe being threatened by them, and then eventually, and she was on the run from a killer, but it was literally at the last 20 pages. So I always feel like if something's on the back of the book telling me a bit about the story, to get me enticed, I kind of want it to happen quite quickly. Do you know what I mean? Do you know what I mean? I don't want it to be that it's the last 10 pages that we're all of a sudden, oh, it's the final showdown, and oh. So I kind of thought maybe, I thought from the start maybe the minute she started investigating, it was going to be I see you, Libby. I see you, Libby Day. You're going to want to stop. Or I'm going to kill you too. But I suppose I can't really complain all that much. But I gave it 4 stars. It was enjoyable. I did quite enjoy it. Just maybe not quite as good as the other books that I've read by her. And lastly, the third book that I read in June, and technically I actually finished it in July, but I read the majority of it in June. So I'm going to include it, because I can do what I want. Was Normal People by Sally Rooney. I've given this book 4 stars because I can't quite make up my mind about it. So the story is about 2 characters, Marianne and Connell, and their relationship and friendship. And I'm not joking when I say that is the entire book. I don't think I was really expecting much of a plot, but that was the plot, was those 2 characters. Which was different for me. I don't think I've ever really read a book. I mean, I probably have, but that centers entirely on just the characters and just the two of them and their friendship stroke relationship. It was quite good. I loved the first half of it when they were making that transition from they were in school and then they went to college together, and it was that transition from in school, Connell was popular and Marianne was quiet, a loner, and then when they come to college, Connell is the shy loner and Marianne is popular. I enjoyed that first journey at the start, and then they were kind of going their own way in life a wee bit. They were doing a bit of traveling. They got into different relationships. They would just be friends, but then they'd end up coming back together again. By about the 3/4 mark, I was kind of waiting for something to happen a bit, to see what would there be anything. Connell got a girlfriend, Marianne had a boyfriend. That went. By the end, they were sort of back where they started, and then the book ended with Connell getting into a course in New York, and I don't really want to spoil this, so this is a spoiler warning. And then they sort of argued over it in the way that they argue. It's not like loud shouting, screaming. It's more of a, oh, you applied to go and you didn't tell me? Well, I didn't tell you because I didn't think I was going to get in. Oh, but did you tell this person? Does that mean you love them? No. I'm going to go now. Oh, don't go. It was just a bit dry almost. And then it just ended with them being like, you should go, she says. I'll always be here, you know that. And I guess it's sort of just left open to interpretation of, did Connell go to New York? If he did, was the fact that they were miles and miles apart from each other enough to sort of keep them away from each other? I'm sort of picturing him getting a wee American girlfriend over there and she's just off doing whatever. I feel like there was just no real growth with the characters. Nothing really changed. Like I say, I liked them in the first half, in the beginning. But then by the end, they were the exact, if anything, they were worse. Now, there is a lot of talks of mental health. There's also family abuse in here. And obviously, in real life, you don't just get over mental health. You don't just become happy again. It is, for most people, something that you live with and it will affect you. So I can sort of understand if the characters didn't change in that respect. But I think I just would have liked to have seen them either grow apart or actually fully be like, come together, be a couple, be a real couple. Because at no point would I say they were ever a couple. They weren't. They really weren't. And yet they had boyfriends and girlfriends with other people. So I I enjoyed it while I was reading it. It was quite light-hearted, like an easy read. The only thing I will say was when I first started it and I realized there's no speech marks. So right from the get-go, the very first page, hey, he says, come in. Come on in. I was like, where's the speech marks? Like, how do I know someone's talking? That was a little bit weird to begin with, or a bit, it took some getting used to, and I would constantly have to double back to realize someone was talking. But I will partly blame that on the fact that anytime I do start a book for the first time, the first chapter I'm always so slow with, just because I'm feeling the rhythm of how the writer speaks and how they write. I'm getting to know the characters and develop a sort of inner voice for them. I'm kind of world building in my head and visualizing everything. So the first chapter is always quite slow. So in the beginning I was a bit like, oh, I don't know if I like this. But by the end, actually, I was like, never mind. I'm good. Like, I'm so good with this. I'm fine. So I actually didn't mind it all that much. Personally, I don't think it's something I would actively want to see again. Like, I wouldn't go out of my way to find it. I want to watch the TV show. I feel like I remember people saying that in total there's something crazy like 40 minutes of sex scenes. So I'm a bit like, oh, this was the first book that I was reading a little bit of the spice that didn't actually bother me. I'm not really a spice person at all. And I wouldn't say this is like spicy. It's more that there's just, you know, a bit of one-on-one, two-on-two time that I didn't mind it. I actually didn't mind it at all. So I did enjoy it. I feel like it's a fun, it's not really fun, but it's a lighthearted read, and I found it easier to get into. I could have probably read this in a day. I didn't, but it was only 266 pages, so quite a short one. It's just the ending. I feel I was a bit like, oh, it just ended. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I gave it 4 stars just because I don't really feel like it deserved 5 from me. It was good. It was good, but not quite perfect. So that is the 3 books that I read in June, 2 of which were hard copies, or physical copies I should say, and 1 of which was an audiobook. So 1 3-star and 2 4 stars. So not bad. That is not bad. I feel like lately in my reading, nothing has been less than a 3-star. That's a lie. I think the Baby Dragon Cafe I ended up giving 2 stars. But nothing's been like that low. I've not had, well, I'm not a DNFer, so I never give up. But I've not had anything that I was like, that was so bad, that was so beyond bad that I hated it so much. So that's very good. And that's good. So yeah, so that is what I read. Hopefully July will be a good reading month for me. I'm kind of in the mood for some mysteries and thrillers. I mean, that's my go-to genre. I just have so many books. I think I should just ban myself from buying any books in July and try and read as much as I can. So far I've read 9 books this year, which is like, that's quite good for me. That's more than 1 book a month. And according to my Storygraph, I need to read 16 more books probably in this month to get back on track, because I set myself a reading goal of 50 books, which I thought wasn't all that extreme, but considering I have 41 to go and we're already halfway through the year, I technically should have read 25 books by now. Oh god, that's why I said I need to read 16 books, because we're at the halfway mark and I haven't read half the books. So I'm gonna do my best. I'm gonna try and read, even if I can get like a book a week read. Surely it's possible. But anyway, so thank you so much for watching this video. All my socials are listed in the description box down below, so you can follow me on anything that takes your fancy. And as always, I will see you in my next video, whatever that may be. Bye!